Uh, yes, and I just cherish my book, The Day After Roswell, because on July 7th of 1997, it was him. It was Lieutenant Colonel Philip J. Corso who brought a book to me and had put in it to Linda Moulton Howe, "It's a new world coming if we can take it." Signed, Lieutenant Colonel Philip J. Corso. I have it in the book. He wrote it in there for me. And he told me the same story about being at the Trinity site in that area and going underground. Last night on my Earth Files YouTube channel, it is so interesting that Kathleen Marden and I were talking about the whole issue of what could be the true goals of the non-humans. And she was putting it in the context that she has had interaction in one way or the other, personally or through paper, with 5,000 people in the experiencer abduction syndrome. And out of that 5,000 has come a kind of signal. And the signal, whether you are talking about grays, tall humanoids, reptilians, or others, is this sense of both anguish and urgency in their relationship with what is happening on this planet. And it's in the context of not beating around the bush that we are a created species by other intelligences on this planet, in which they have used it as a laboratory. But that right now, the big concern is that one of the statements she quoted from one of the abduction cases was, "You are a very difficult species. We want you to survive and grow and evolve. We are not trying to interfere. But ... if there is not more evolution," and Kathy would say these words, "you will be replaced by another version."
Well,
now, some people think that is harsh. Some people think that that's scary. Neither Kathleen nor I do. I do not think that we are dealing with beings who want to annihilate us. I do not think that we are at a crossroads in the evolution of this planet in which, on the other side of "we're not alone in the universe," would be our extinction. Not totally the opposite. I think that if we this year or next year finally get that mind-cracking headline, "No, we are not alone in this universe," and we're going to start, those who are in power, who have some detailed information about various types and agendas, that maybe we will start getting some truth. And I personally think that nothing could make the Homo sapiens sapiens species evolve to more non-violence than realizing we are not the top of the intelligence chain. Is the very fact that whistleblowers, which I totally wish I could give you all of the proof I have, say we have been in interstellar trade since 1972. We have been going with extraterrestrials through the Milky Way galaxy and even to another galaxy, is my understanding. And what have we been gaining? We have been gaining gold and rare metals and diamonds and all kinds of things that could be used and applied in the defense industry and in other general commercial applications on the planet without anyone knowing. But the very fact that there is now an entire Homo sapiens sapien contingent that is tied to the defense area of our country, and I assume China, I assume Russia, the same thing. They already are interstellar. There already has been a huge underground base in a lava tube on Mars since at least the early 1970s, all with the help of some non-humans who, for a variety of possible reasons that might relate to an alleged agreement that Eisenhower made that gave a trade-off, so it would be formal, that the non-humans could harvest from the earth a limited number of animals and people. And in exchange, they would help us, even if it was kept from the general world public. And I think that is the big box that we are in, and that there are power brokers. It serves the power brokers not to have the general population told the truth.
But that's one of the things.
Yesterday, I'll just finish here. Kathleen Martin, in this interview, said that the non-humans are extremely concerned about where humans are right now in terms of both being kept ignorant and the weaponization. They are at two ends of the human spectrum on this planet. If everyone at the same time is told we are not alone in this universe, we have had interactions from other intelligences for at least 270 million years. The planet is looked at as a laboratory. We are one of the products, but it is now time for this product to stand on its own 2 feet, and that we are either going to sink or we are going to swim, depending upon if we can get past our violence.
Yeah,
and I think there are ETs trying, even making hybrids that are less violent, trying to switch this very valuable, incredible species. And that's Kathleen feels the same way, that humans are looked at as something extraordinary, but we are very difficult and very violent.
How much our reality is going to change when we really meet these beings. And Linda, in her citizens hearings for UFO disclosure in Washington, talked about one of these soldiers that were put face to face with an ET, and wasn't a pretty conscious guy, just a kind of ordinary, private, I guess, and then he had this overlay of so many different realities into his awareness. He could not stay lucid or consciousness. That's why I always mention Whitley's lucidity in practice. But this is the new world I feel we're coming into, the world of an altered consciousness. Yeah, Linda.
He fainted. And he had been told by his superior officer that this was a mission. They wanted him to have the experience of the telepathic download. They told him he would faint. He said, you know what? Swear words.
Right.
And I'm not going to faint in front of an extraterrestrial that's 3.5 feet tall. And
he did.
When all of the telepathy started, the way he told me, he said, Linda, it was like having 5 or 7 full feature Hollywood movies going through his mind, with temperature, with sensations of all sorts of things. So it was not just mental, it was sensation in his body reacting. And he said he began to realize that his brain was trying to ask questions, and that with every question that he felt like he was being assaulted, a new movie would come, so that the dialogue with the being in front of him was coming through image, feeling, sound, all of these overlays with gold symbols that he thought were Sanskrit, that were over all of the moving movies. And he did faint. And he went from standing up with all of this going through his head. His next memory, it was 4 or 5 hours later, and he was waking up where he had been placed on a bed, and his superior officer had told him that this would be too much. And this is why they wanted him to have the experience.
Well, so
but I wanted to address one other thing shortly.
Yeah.
The shift in consciousness. I don't know about you guys, but it started about 4 months ago. I began actively, and it was as if something was coming into me, not me sitting trying to drum up something. Could I see a little gray moving around my office? Could I imagine myself communicating my thoughts to a little gray that would do everything that I ask it to do, and that it would be somehow organic and artificial intelligence mixed together? And I began trying to see how would I feel if I really thought that I could join my human life with grays. I started there. And I've now tried to imagine with a standing up lizard. I've tried with a standing up tall 8-foot Nordic or black hair or red hair, like mental exercises. That's never happened in the 42 years in which I started with animal mutilations. And it is a sense of not just mental manipulation for the challenge of it. It's as if something is coming in which all of these different types, some of them are going to be among humans. I did an interview with somebody who has been a long time abductee, and they said the same thing, that what they are being shown in their current dreams is that we will have grays or others on the planet among us. What none of us can figure out or anticipate is what is going to happen that will bring that into our reality past the mind crack of that headline. In other words, it feels like that's coming.
Beautiful. Thanks. You know, it does have to do with some of those elements of love and intimacy. And this is what the ultra-terrestrials and the extra-celestials that the Hurtaks talk about, expanding the heart to embrace what they call the B'nai Or. JJ, Desiree, talk. Wait.
All right. Well, going back again to what we wrote in the book, and I think what the book is really all about is the fact that there's a consciousness linkage. Once, I mean, Whitley's had it many times with this. Linda has had many speakers or people she's talked to, and now also I think her own, I've sensed with this many times with you, Linda, you know, also that deeper awareness. So once you've seen, even if you've just seen an extraterrestrial spacecraft, there seems to be, and in what Dr. Jack called in the 70s, the inductive linkage. I'll give an example. A friend of mine was actually doing experiments in the Bermuda Triangle. She was a marine biologist, and they actually encountered aliens. This is, of course, off the coast of Florida. And they told her a lot and things, but they also said certain things not to say. And she was back at a friend's house and she was talking. This was like 3 or 4 years later. And all of a sudden she was starting to say things she wasn't supposed to say. A shelf, which normally would have just collapsed, flew up with stuff on it and flew out. And she goes, I can't say anymore. So it's just an example that there's this connection, and it can be a higher connection or it can be a warning connection like she had. And I think this is what really we're all developing. And we're here in Sedona, and there's certainly like an opening that's taking place. People are flocking to places they feel comfortable with, to energies that they're starting to feel and really experience. Healing energies, awareness, awakening.
Well, people are flocking to this seminar. We had 600 people signed up. That's a sort of big number for Portal to Ascension, just because we're talking about this. So there's a shift, JJ. Yes.
If I can continue with Nick Pope and others, there's a plethora of documents, thousands of pages of documentation, but it's keeping the ufology on simply a objective level of material objects. The greater change, as Linda has pointed out, and of course Whitley so beautifully, is the inner nature, the inner space that precedes the outer space. The inner subjective nature of humanity is beginning to wake up and smell the coffee and understand that we have to have a mind that can reach out with greater sensitivity to understand the levels of consciousness experience, which is part of what I will call the greater orientation that humanity is going
And so
through.
I have to say, in addition to the hybrid abductions and things that we earlier talked about, I think there's a greater interconnectedness, like the kiss. I love that, Whitley. It was
It
great.
is beautiful,
That-
Whitley.
That they're
Thank you.
actually trying to kiss us on a higher level to awaken our consciousness to share with them. I mean, the hell with the government in that sense. They want to go directly,
Right.
some of them, the higher, what we call the higher beings, the extraterrestrials, and even higher levels of extraterrestrials want communication, and they're just waiting for us to open our veil. And I'll use the same words that Whitley did to see where we are and who we are. We believe we're actually cosmic beings, and that's one thing I always say on programs like this. It may fly in the face of some ideas, but I think you're going to find us on other planets. I think we came here temporarily. We can say, thousands of years ago or even millions of years ago, but you're going to find Adamic species, which is what we call ourselves from the work that Dr. Hertag did with the Keys of Enoch, on other planetary systems. And we were
Right.
just here as one of the planets, and we forgot who we were.
And
Really, I like your
interesting.
figure of speech because you go back to the ancient Middle East and the ancient Arabic, or even Hebrew tradition is the lifting of the veil, the kiss between bride
Yes.
and bridegroom that initiates one to understand that the Adamic seed under the tradition of Abraham was destined to go to the stars. Daniel chapter 12 protects us from the so-called not so good influences from outer space by the arrival of the higher ETs, UTs, who provide us with true education and subjectively with a true psychology
Well,
of love.
I just
We-
think it's interesting. We're all shifting, like Linda. Yeah, this is a new phase for you. I mean, talk about that, because there's a shift that's happening in the consciousness of the planet.
A study of what is the relationship of the human soul to this universe in terms of the machinery of this cosmos and how it works. And I'm going to put this pawn on the chessboard because when I read the material that I have now, it was as if pieces in a puzzle started dropping into my mind that this is correct. And this is what I'm going to boil some stuff down. That the soul is a quantum field, and that the quantum field is linked to every neutrino, the smallest particle throughout the entire, let's just say universe, and know it could be complex. I just mean it is the implicate order writ large, but suddenly an explanation of the soul, not as a philosophy, not as a poem, but that the soul is a quantum energy field, and that the quantum energy field has a shape, and that shape of that quantum energy field is designed to go into a variety of organic containers, access information into that quantum energy field, leave the organic and go into a large system where the quantum field, the whole quantum field, we'll call it the divine field, like the ultimate quantum field, keeps having contributions of all of this quantum energy, field energy, from an infinite number. So that suddenly, as I was reading this incredible material, I had this sudden image or feeling, or that it's like a breathing in and a breathing out of an entire infinite field that keeps growing and evolving from all of these quantum field energy souls that are out in every possible universe, every possible dimension, every possible timeline, taking it all back so that the entire huge, the biggest box of all, keeps growing, expanding, and evolving because of the quantum energy souls that gather information and take it back.
Right.
That's
And it's from a government study.
That was
And
the
a
beauty.
quick footnote, it would tie into what Willie said about why is it? And Leo Sprinkle told me this all the way back when I was working on A Strange Harvest and animal mutilations. There is a relationship between the non-humans and those that pass from life to death.
Well,
Very definitely.
And this quantum energy soul
Mm.
moving and in through it all, constantly giving information, which suddenly for me, it brings that the dead are not extinct. They have moved into another quantum energy.
Yeah,
system,
when I
and that they can exchange here.
when we realize that we are in-souled beings walking around in this
Yeah.
piece of flesh, this piece of earth, when we realize that that's the bigger reality than our personality and then our bodies, we will meet, I think, those beings, the non-humans and the dead, and all those in-souled beings that seem to be right here, right around us, but we've been so trained to limit our perspective that we don't notice it, but they are right here. That's my feeling.